You're listening to Trysteropod, Episode 7. I'm David Colma. The other guys, Dorian Wallace. We're composers, and we like to talk about leftist politics and music. So, how's it going, Dorian?
Hey, it's going well. Today we actually have a very close friend and super badass. This is our first interview, so we're probably going to fuck the shit out of this, but we have on the Honorable Elizabeth A. Baker, a new Renaissance artist. And Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about yourself and everything that you do.
Well, everything that I could do would probably fill your entire episode.
That's why we got you on.
Cliff Notes version. Cliff Notes, I work in sound and I work in space. I feel like that's the end, like the easiest way to say
an accurate description.
what I do.
I work in sound and I work in space. Yeah, so Elizabeth, I met Elizabeth, I think 10th Intervention had done an inauguration concert. It was the year anniversary of the Donald Trump inauguration, because we're all just super big fans of him at 10th Intervention. That was a joke. If anybody didn't figure that out, that's a joke. But we were just doing a concert of sort of old school 20th century political music, and then also, some living composers. And Elizabeth was somebody who had popped up on Heinel's radar. And it was your piece about Martin Luther King Jr. And the assassination, I believe. Is that correct? It's been a minute since I actually checked out that work.
It's what happened after the assassination, and how there was this big coming together in Central Park, and people were very confused about what they wanted to do. There was talk about blowing up like power plants and water plants and stuff, because people were just like, wow, this nonviolence thing seemed to not work. So, if they take Stokely Carmichael, I don't know, I'm gonna have to blow up something. I'm like, this is great audio and it should be used. Because we kind of forget about how shook everyone was when Martin Luther King was shot.
Right. James Brown kept people from going out on the streets in Boston because they live put him on TV, one of his performances that night, if I remember correctly.
Wow, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah. Things you learn. Go ahead.
We had programmed one of Elizabeth's pieces, and Elizabeth, you actually came in from Florida to run the electronics, and then I think we all went and drank afterwards, or no, that was another time. But I don't know. I thought we hit it the fuck off, and I've really enjoyed your music. Just from all the stuff you post online and various other situations. And I'm also a huge fan. You run a toy piano festival. Is that correct?
Not anymore.
Oh, no.
I don't do that.
Okay.
No. See, everyone's always like, oh, no. And I'm like, oh, yes, it's great. I'm retired from nonprofit management.
Okay.
I don't wake up every day saying I hate my life.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I can't imagine how that would bring you to that point whatsoever. Yeah, and you also do...
I feel like that's an insider joke for anyone that runs a nonprofit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, people have no idea how much work goes into these festivals. Like, sometimes people think it's like just an hour-and-a-half concert or something like that.
No.
And literally, like, we have a concert at the end of this week, and I can't think of anything else. Like, I've been trying to do other work, and it's just been like, but we've got this fucking show on Saturday. So yeah, no, totally. And an entire festival, especially like such a thematic festival, I can only imagine the torment that your mind and body and soul go through.
Yeah, And Florida's not good on volunteer work, so it was me as the administrative person, me as the sound tech, me as the production, me as the housing, all the things. Every job that you can think of in a festival, that's what I did as one person.
Wow. So I guess now that we've kind of warmed up, I actually don't know how you got involved in music and involved in movement and dance and visual art. I don't know anything about how you got into all of this. What's your story?
Well, that's a low-key story.
All right.
But you're lucky because I had to tell this over and over again to small children today. And by small children, I mean high school children.
By small children, you mean David Colma and Dorian Wallace.
Yeah, right, exactly. Go ahead.
So I got into music very early. Like my very first musical memory was when I was about 3 or 4. My parents took me to see Peter and the Wolf. And I was enthralled with the orchestra, and I was like, I want to be the dude with the stick. Mostly because I want to tell people what to do.
Right.
As a Leo, that makes a lot of sense. And so my mom was like, maybe we put you in piano lessons. And so by 5, I was in piano lessons, and I figured out how to write music on a piece of paper. So I actually started composing things around 5.
Okay.
So I'm one of those weirdos that just always composed. I was really interested in dance from an early age, and so I studied at a Russian ballet school here, which shout out to Academy of Ballet Arts because they've put out a lot of really prominent dancers. So I grew up with Calvin Royal III, who is a principal at ABT.
Yeah.
Another good friend of mine, Gerald Watson, is a principal at Nashville Ballet. Okay. So these were friends of mine that I was dancing with, and I was still doing music, and I was also running track, doing all the things, being the overachiever. And as far as visual art is concerned, a lot of people don't know that I used to extensively paint in high school, and I did illuminated manuscript for many years. I brought that back recently in a new piece of mine where I'm now doing amplified illuminated manuscript because that's an instrument we all want to play. And then I got into photography largely because I've always been an outsider of the music school because all of my friends were in math rock bands or playing noise music. I spent a lot of time not in music school hanging out with other people, but going to venues you can't find on Google Maps, in sketch storage units, just listening to all of these great artists. And I was taking photos. I was really good at taking show photos. And so I have at one point in time, I'd love to do a retrospective of this, but I have a ton of just underground show photos that are just really, there's high intensity in the frame, and I was just really good at that. And also photographing drummers, which is incredibly difficult to do because of generally the placement and stuff. So that got me into photography. And then one of my really good friends, Andrea Avery, happens to be a professional graphic designer. And when we were going to school together, she was always in the graphics lab, and I didn't ever want to be in the music department because I was a loner. I was the only classical guitar performance major.
You were a classical guitar performance major?
Exactly. Nobody that studies that degree ever is a classical guitarist. It's like you major in classical guitar performance, and then you end up playing in venues that you can't find on Google Maps in asymmetrical meters.
Right. There you go.
For a bunch of tweaked out people, or you just don't play music anymore. That's the spectrum that I've found in interviewing former classical guitar majors. Wow. But yeah, so I would take my guitar to the graphics lab, and I would watch my friend Vector Skin for like all 3 or 4 weeks or however long she was doing those types of projects. And it was great. I was out of the music department drama. So every time people would say things like, did you hear about so-and-so doing the things? And I was like, oh, no, I was practicing.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's good to shame people every once in a while.
Sure, totally. Wow. Yes.
So then that's kind of how I got to like the precipice of like where I was, and then I got into like John Cage's writing and musique concrète, and then it just all went downhill from there.
Wow.
That's me now.
Wow.
So
yeah, I had no idea that you played classical guitar.
Can I ask a question, Dorian?
Oh, sorry, David. Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask a question. So so we live in a time when people are required to specialize more and more, and you've purposefully decided to do the opposite. So why?
Yes.
So how do you feel about that? This sort of the pressure to sort of conform to one thing, but the feeling to need to do so many to bring so many different things together as an artist.
I don't feel any pressure whatsoever. It's sort of this otherness, this comfort with otherness. And I've always felt otherness because my mother is British. Like she's an immigrant. And my entire childhood, I was other. Like, I mean, on my birth certificate, I'm also marked as other. My mother's green card, her race is also marked as other because she is also incredibly mixed. But otherness in like basic things of like when you would go to like elementary school and everyone had a Lunchable and my mom was packing camembert and brie and a baguette and grapes and like a Perrier. It's basically a Lunchable, but it's actual food. But I got made fun of that because who eats food in America? Like, you know.
Yes, it's actually a true statement. Okay, wow. Okay.
I tried to take my mom like one day to the grocery store. I was like, Mom, we have to buy a Lunchable because I want to be American. And she looked at it and she was like, this is not food. What is that? That's not cheese. That's yellow. She made me put it back.
Wow. Oh man.
So I don't feel pressure in like doing all the things. It just feels like a very natural expression of who I am and how I see the world.
Well, it comes off in performance that way.
Yeah. You have a very confident stage presence and performance presence that
which is very ironic because as a
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very ironic because as a child I was very shy. And my mother forced me to do theater.
Wow.
And then Murder at the OK Corral really brought me out of my shell.
No, I totally relate to the being shy and like I didn't speak during first grade or kindergarten when not primed to. And so that means I decided as an adult that after getting degrees in the oboe that I should learn all of Robert Ashley's Perfect Lives and then like talk on nonstop for 7 hours, so in front of people in a
Elizabeth, if you didn't know the Perfect Lives performance that I do, David is the one who plays Robert Ashley's part. So that's how we know each other.
It all comes together now.
Yeah. So David is also a strange avant-garde performer, as well as composer and.
I don't know if it's strange anymore. Like I feel.
True.
I've lately been saying like we say it's like weird, but I feel like that's not the case anymore. I feel like I feel like normal is the new weird.
Sure.
Like.
Yeah, I try when
I look at my friends with very normal
when
lives.
When I try to describe
and I'm very confused by them.
Robert Ashley to people, I've stopped using the word weird. If I just talk about it like it's a thing that's interesting, it's usually far more effective. It's also that I just don't feel weird when I do it. Like even though it's something that no one else would do, like I bring in a bag of oranges and I start bowling them around the stage. I mean, no one else would willingly do that.
Which we should
all
I
know.
do.
That's why I did it.
Although as a Floridian, I don't know that I can totally condone that because like citrus is our thing down here.
Oh yeah.
I know. Right.
My dad.
The poor farmers who put so much work in.
I ate the oranges later, just so you know. I still ate them.
Okay. Were they California oranges? Because we have a beef with them, just so you know. Our oranges are sweeter and better than California's bitter oranges.
I don't remember because that was so long ago. But yeah, I found one the next day. Yeah. So yeah. No, exactly. No, I think
I'm gonna say there were California oranges.
No, I have. Yeah, it's right. It's right. It's now time to. It's time to revoke my citizenship in the community, right? It's like can't use those damn California oranges. It's like it's if you have peaches from the wrong side of the South Carolina or Georgia border,
Yeah. I mean, a Georgia peach is one thing. Also my dad's family is from Georgia, and we can't be eating peaches from somewhere that's not Georgia. That's just forbidden. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely love just like these kinds of cultural things. There was I'm from the Midwest, so is David. And I never really thought of myself as a Midwesterner as a kid, because that was just how life was. But then moving to New York, something about corn on the cob came up, and I got like psychotically defensive about the corn grown in Ohio. It was almost like, hey, you fucking talk shit, I'll kill. It was that kind of level of just full force defensiveness over corn. But then it was like, but on the other side, after eating corn that's not, from the farmer's market or from the roadside stand that I grew up around, all of a sudden it was like, whoa, everywhere else sucks. So it's really funny hearing you talk about oranges and peaches and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, so my thing is that I simultaneously am jaded by, but in super big defense of Florida, because Florida man is not representative of the whole state. Okay. It's just some people, and the heat makes them crazy. You would feel that way too. If it was fall, like today, it was 85 degrees. If it was 85 degrees and 100% humidity in the fall, you would lose your mind too.
Yeah.
So, that being said, positive things in Florida include we grow most of your food, and we live with dinosaurs, and we live with basically things that can kill you on a regular basis. Right. So when the apocalypse comes and everyone's like, oh yeah, Florida, they're going to be underwater. Whatever, we have kayaks. We do that all the time when there's a hurricane. Yeah. You're like, okay, hurricane's coming, time for the kayaks. Get them out, go to the store. It's normal.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
We're the ones you want when the natural disaster goes down.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to save the planet. And you should be nicer to us because we know what's up.
Well, there you go, Dorian. It's Elizabeth can help you when the zombie apocalypse comes.
Right. You know who's not going to survive the zombie apocalypse is Ohioans. Ohioans and people from Michigan are fucking dead. Now, I will say, the further north you get in Michigan, there are some pretty hardcore survivalists. But yeah, the state of Ohio is we're gone. 'Cause, it's a closed-in state. There's no water on any side. Well, no, there's Lake Erie, but that doesn't even really count. Like, nobody in Ohio counts Lake Erie. I mean, you might, David, because you're closer from where you're from.
Sure.
But from where I'm from, we didn't give a fuck about Lake Erie.
Oh, there you go. Well, it's okay. It's full of zebra mussels.
Mm. Yeah.
It's a species that shouldn't
Elizabeth,
be there.
But yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
There's like gators out. There's gators out like very close to where I live. I live near an nature preserve, and like there's snakes, poisonous snakes, gators. Like we had like just the other day, like there was a little girl walking on her way to school or away from school, and like a big poisonous snake, pretty sure it was copperhead, was like just chilling, sunning itself. And this poor little girl like almost cried, and my dad and I had to help her like get to the other side of the road away from the snake, even though the snake was like just living its life, not caring. But if you got close enough to it, it was poisonous and bad things would have happened. And that's just a normal day in Florida. Like just, conquering something that might kill you just every day. And it gives you this deep sense of accomplishment, because it's like you go to sleep and you're like, man, Florida didn't get me today. Maybe tomorrow. But Florida did not get me today.
Right. Yeah, it's like Florida makes you stronger almost.
Yes.
It's like
that's right. It's like a superpower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm floating around your website, and I wanted to ask you about the Resonant Life. I didn't know anything about this until literally like 5 minutes ago. What is the Resonant Life?
Yeah. So the Resonant Life is attack, decay, sustain, release, resonate, TM. It's trademarked soon. And so it's looking at your life like a synthesizer and how you can craft and mold your own sound, and taking those ideas of from synthesis and applying them to life matters in a very simplistic way. It's a lot of people ask me for advice, and it gets very difficult to answer and be emotionally energy involved in all of these people's issues, and I want to help people.
Sure.
So I decided to write a book about all of the things, not all of the things, but many important things in my life that have happened, that tie in with each of those ideas of decay and sustain and release, and how I overcame them. And also there's questions for the reader so that they can really do a self-analysis. And a lot of people have said that it's really changed their lives and helped them get past stuff, focus for the future. I mean, it touches a lot of different things. And it's not just for artists or musicians, it's for regular humans with normal jobs, like corporate jobs and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, yeah, I've been really proud of the book and what it has to say, and I hope more people read it. Yeah. No, seriously, anybody listening to this, check this out. Like, I'm actually already just intrigued by scanning over the website. And you did a speaking engagement at the Working Women of Tampa Bay on this subject matter? Yeah. Yes. And so, I mean, again, it's a situation of, I do a lot of consulting and stuff privately for people, and I've mentored many people, and just wanting to help more people. And yeah, I mean, there's so many stories in that book. I was actually just thinking of one on the way home.
Okay.
Because it's all my life, and it was just thinking of a percussionist that I used to know who just destroyed our very nice friendship because he overthought things. And it's like, it's such a very musical thing where the lines get blurred and people overestimate relationships and friendships, and then just blow things up out of proportion. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Lots of fun stories in there.
No joke. I'm reading Stephen Nachmanovich's Free Play. It's a book I read years ago, but I'm rereading it right now. And there was a passage in the chapter today about quality of work, because the entire book up until this point has been about freedom of expression and freedom of playing. But this last chapter is about how to utilize quality when improvising, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it talks about how too little thought you get trash, and too much thought you get nothing. Like you have no feeling, and it's this fine balancing point with the relationship of the artist to the music. And of course, like, that does expand further into our human connectedness, from human being to human being, where there is a balance of what you just said on overthinking things, and it can actually harm relationships if you overthink or underthink. I don't know. But yeah, this looks really, really interesting. And why the relationship with synthesizers? Like, I mean, I obviously know because I've heard you play and I know your music. But what is your relationship to synthesizers and your connectivity to your life?
Well, I think it's to everyone's life. I mean, there's attack. Like, there's the attack, the initial point of something beginning. A decay where we like sort of you come down from that attack, and the sustain, which is sort of this plateau, and then a release where you've moved past and are moving on to the next attack, so to speak. And the idea that everything we do resonates with people, with others and with ourselves.
Yeah.
And that if you live your life with purpose, which is what I always try to do, is living my life with purpose and encouraging others to live their lives with purpose, that in doing so, you have a profound life and you feel just grounded more often. And I feel so many people are not grounded just because it's going and doing this because you're supposed to do this, but you don't feel quite like your purpose is, and some people might not even know that that's what it is. And I feel like that's one of the things of the Resonant Life, is that it really just hones in on getting people to think about what is their purpose in life and how do you pursue your purpose, and how your life really resounds with other people. I mean, there's a whole chapter on kindness and how when you're more active in kindness, it's not just for yourself, but you see how it radiates throughout all the people around you. So like, my friends own a coffee shop in St. Pete called Bandit Coffee. And one of the reasons why I love it is not just for the fact that they have really good coffee, really good food now, but because they are actively invested in their community and in the people in their community and the stories of the people in their community, and that they'll have conversations with you, or very often you'll find people having conversations with other people in this coffee shop that they might not have come across, and they're very open conversations, like with people from dissenting opinions. And it's very interesting because Sarah and Josh have really manifested and created and fostered an atmosphere of open dialogue that you don't normally see in a lot of places. And so, like I said, it's just because of the kindness, and that kindness radiating into all the people that are frequenting that establishment. And it's incredible to see.
Yeah, I was just at a conference over the weekend, a music theory conference, and I used to being around composers, I was really surprised at just how kind everybody was. Everybody was interesting and nice in a way that I've just almost never experienced in other situations, where everyone just starts to gets this gigantic chip on their shoulder, and conversations start to be unpleasant and painful rather than enjoyable and worth having.
Mm-hmm. And it's nice to talk to people that are not in the thing that you do.
Right.
That you're finding out about the stuff that they're doing, and they're equally finding out about stuff that you're doing. So, I mean, I've had very strange conversations where I'm like explaining why I feel that jazz is a problematic term in 2019, and that we should probably come up with something else. And people are like, well, why? And I'm like, well, because historically jazz was used to keep African Americans out of prestigious institutions. And now it's being like, taken by not African Americans. And then also there's like all these subsets that really don't fit into jazz as an overarching theme. But we call it jazz because nobody wants to give it something else, and humans are obsessed with labels and categorization, and I've never understood that. Like, I think that's why I like new Renaissance artists. I've always, I was telling the students today, I did a talk at a school today, and I was saying that even as a child, I was like, best friend is a stupid term, because everyone comes to the table of friendship with different things, so you can't judge one against the other. Just being a woke child, because I don't know,
Right. So,
wow.
What was it?
What were you going to say, David? Oh.
I'm not really sure at this point. That last thing you said was just kind of surprising, such good advice that I've literally never thought about. Don't call people your best friend. I mean, you're really just setting yourself up for failure, because by nature, I mean, everyone else is going to think their best friend is somebody else. Then there are other people who think, I mean, whereas if you just think about friends, you're not comparing them. There's no need to. Right. No, I totally get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing of favorite colors. I'm like, but all the colors bring something to the table. Such a weird child that was just like, hey, I don't like favorites because I think everything has value.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
I
hated favorite. I hated all that favorite shit for a different reason when I was a kid. It was mostly I hated the who do you look up to? And I'm like, why do I have to look up to anyone? Myself. I want to be me, damn it. And they're just like,
exactly.
It was just
that was always the lamest explanation for why not to do things. I remember back at Kent State University, something about Frank Zappa came up. I used something in one of my pieces, and this wasn't any of the professors. It was actually another student. But I said, somebody was like, "Well, you shouldn't do this. That's an impossible thing to do." And I was like, "Well, Frank Zappa does this." And the answer was, "Well, are you Frank Zappa?" And it was just like, no, but I like Frank Zappa, and it was just such a weird hierarchy of discussion points. Once you've earned certain stripes, then you're allowed to do this next thing, and that's just such a weirdly closed off, dumb way to look at the world, especially in a creative field.
And you were just talking to a student, as that was another student. You weren't talking to a professor when that's going on, right?
Yeah.
It just goes to show you the advice. My dad refers to the thing that happens when you go to college and graduate school is, well, what they've got is really big wing clippers, and what they do is they clip your wings off. And the thing that's funny is that the students imbibe that idea so hard. Then I remember doing this too, is that you come up with this, you start clipping each other's wings. You don't even need the professors to do it.
Oh, and in fact, like, I think all of us have been guest artists at some place or another. Sometimes I'll hear things students say, like, I can't do this, and it's like being personal friends with their professors, and it's like, I know the professor did not tell you this. Like, you came up with this idea on your own. Like,
yeah. But what's funny is, Dorian, is that the more there's that particular example of we were teaching lessons to students, and one of them wanted to write video game music, but is like, well, I shouldn't waste my talent on video games. It's like, what are you talking about? You want to write video game music? Go do that. What's wrong with you? And it just now the specific idea he never came up with that himself. Like, he came up with most of that himself. But I know for a fact that that his teacher was the kind of person that would have made it very clear that they were interested in their other things, and we're not at all interested in them doing video game music. So it's not that there was like an explicit, you shouldn't do this. It was an implicit that I'm more interesting when I do this other thing, even though I don't like it as much. Yeah, that's how the wing clippers work. Nobody stands there and goes, hey, that thing you want to do? Fuck that, motherfucker. I mean, almost no one does that. It's the nice people who say, oh, well, you're so interesting when you go do this thing that I like, Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so my experiences were definitely different because, I went to traditional music school. That was horrible. I could probably say some experiences were very similar, being an outcast because I was a classical guitar major. But when I went to production school, like a huge amount of production school was like critiquing everyone else in class. And so in that, and then you had to you didn't just say something, you had to validate it. So it's like, okay, well, I think the drums are completely off. Did you bother beat detectiving them? And then somebody's like, no, I used elastic audio. And you're like, well, that's the problem. You can't elastic audio drums. And then you can have a whole argument on that. But I mean, because of the way that program worked, there was a lot of practical, knowledge involved. So you had to go find people to play on your track. You had to find people to help assist you with engineering. And so there was a lot of working together and cooperative learning that normally turns into Lord of the Flies. But in this case, was actually a really good thing because in general, you respected people's artistic ideas because in the same class, you'd have a rap dude, you'd also have a metalhead. And I remember this one piece. It was the only piece that we really was really talked about in not a way of saying you shouldn't do it, but there was a deep conversation about the sea floor because the lyrics, and I will never forget them. This is from 2013. I still remember it. The lyrics for this metal song was Neptune, he's the sheriff of the sea, the meanest mother F you've ever seen. He'll knock you on the ground and drag your ass down. And we were like, wait, hold up. How is he knocking you on the ground in the sea? It doesn't make sense. So we had a whole class period of but there's no way because the viscosity of water, at that depth, you wouldn't be able to push them over. This was a full-on conversation. People were fighting over whether you could knock someone on the ground if the sea had an actual ground. But that was the extent of well, I don't really feel your song it's doing things, but I'm really concerned about this whole Neptune knocking people on the ground of the sea.
Yeah, and it's the problem is the physics that the imaginary god can't do this thing under the water. Right.
And meanwhile, the whole time I was listening to this song, I was thinking SpongeBob SquarePants. But there were so many curse words in it, and it was going on this project where at the end of the last semester capstone was to make a full album with everyone in your year. And since it's a like university release, we can't have curse words on it. So we just spent hours censoring F-bombs. Just, we learned all the FCC regulations on, like, you can have the f, and you can have the k, but you can't have the that's the no. That's the no.
Yeah. Wow. It's like,
and what's the right way to censor it for the song? Is the beep right? Like, does the beep go with the vibe of the song, or do we just reverse it? Like, you know, more about censorship than I ever wanted to experience.
Right. Wow.
We were just working with 2 artists to make masks for this upcoming concert, and these 2 artists are. We had met them through basically an arts organization that works with kids who have been in and out of the criminal justice system, and they're now adults and all this stuff, but they're still, they're not necessarily in the professional artist scene. They're definitely 2 working class guys who are incredibly good at the arts, but that's just not what they do for their living. And so we were in a school because we had covered all the art supplies for them, and we're listening to the Wu-Tang Clan because they wanted music to listen to, but we had to pick the edited Wu-Tang tracks, and some of the edits are the funniest thing.
Not the Wu-Tang.
Well, they literally just take Old Dirty Bastard and have him go like, ugh, like instead of the swear words.
That's
like
hysterical.
It is like, I have a feeling that was a RZA choice, because it was like nobody's gonna question
of course.
ODB making noises like at random points.
That is RZA all over it.
Oh yeah,
all over it.
Oh yeah, but it was just so funny, like just hearing like all these potentially bad words, and it was really just ODB just grunting. So yeah. Well, and then like, what's the FCC rule where you're allowed to say ass, but you're not allowed to say asshole? So they blank out the word hole.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow. Have you? I'm assuming we've all spent some time on YouTube watching absurd videos, but have you ever watched any of the compilations of TV edits? Like some of the like Die Hard 2, for example.
So the thing about YouTube is that like I'm hardly ever on YouTube other than to like put my videos up there. Because I just like work.
Yeah.
I don't see these things. Like, there's a whole set of things that people are talking about, and I'm like, I don't know what that. Yeah. I don't know what these things are. I'm so out of the loop of these things.
Yeah. Don't feel too bad about me referencing something, because I happen to exist in a weird part of the internet that most people aren't.
But I do appreciate everything that you post on the internet. I will say that. That's just, it makes my day. However, recently, I will say, I should talk about object studies, but for a moment, like, I'm going to digress on a tangent for a second and talk about BarkBox and the pig butts.
Oh my God.
Yeah, did you see this post?
No.
With BarkBox? They released pigs in a blanket that looks suspiciously like a Fleshlight for dogs. That's furry.
What?
And then, like, you would think they would be like, oh, let's apologize. No, the whole, like, all the comments, you need to read all of their comments to all the comments, because they're like, please don't put this on your dog's bits. It's going to be a bad time. Please don't put this on your bits. Please don't put Coconut Slippy on the pigs.
Oh my God.
I spent a good hour of my day reading through all of these comments. It was so good.
Yeah, is this I found a Mashable article about it. Is this on YouTube, the thing you're specifically talking about, or?
No, it's not on YouTube. It's just like on BarkBox's Facebook page.
Those things.
They posted the.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those definitely look like fleshlights.
Here, share the link in the thing so I can see this.
Big.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there, David.
Big
Click on
honking
it.
pigs in a blanket.
Yeah, let's listen to David's reaction.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my.
Oh, that's pretty.
The worst part is that it really looks like it looks like a dog that would do anal on a pig. That's what it looks like. I mean, that's even worse. Oh, jeez.
You know, I'm really appreciating.
I love the dude who was like. There was a dude who was like, "Does this come in a discreet box?" And they're like, "It comes in a BarkBox, sir."
Wow. I am appreciating in this article, there's a picture, a side-by-side picture of a pigs in a blanket dog toy and then an actual fleshlight.
Yeah. Just in case you didn't know what it looked like.
The internet has ruined...
Wow.
The internet has ruined, like, the loss of innocence just everywhere. Just everywhere. But, yeah.
Sensing dollar signs, BarkBox has leaned all the way into this viral mistake. In addition to the blog post, they sent out PR pitches to hungry reporters and even made a TikTok about how thick the toy is.
Oh, God.
Thick, THICC. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Sorry, that's one of the funniest things. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Thank you.
Then they released their own press statement. They're like, this is not a new thing for us. We've released 2 red rockets already. And just like, no.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Wow. Oh, my God. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on here. The thanks stuffing BarkBox, boatload of gravy.
Yep.
The big hunkin' pigs in a blanket.
The warm apple pie.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, the butts are super funny, so of course I was expecting people to talk about them. That's apparently what the head of social media marketing at BarkBox. She thought the butts were going to be funny. I was hunkering down, ready to say, I'm also a vegan. It's okay. And that wasn't what people meant at all.
Oh, my God.
This is incredible.
I can't believe
Oh, my God. Thank you for this.
I haven't laughed that hard in a while, so...
Yeah. We've had 2 red rocket toys. This would have been a joke we made, but truly it was an accident. Oh man! As much as the internet sucks, I love the internet so much. Like there's a lot of.
It was a good day for the internet. Then.
Yeah. This is good. There was a piece I had seen few years ago where somebody improvised I think it was Jason White and maybe Charlotte Munn Wood at Manhattan School of Music, but Jason was improvising piano parts while Charlotte read Amazon reviews, but it was specifically for Miss Bic, and basically Miss Bic was Bic razors except marketed towards women, and they were pink and like 3 times the amount, like the cost. Yes. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because like some of the reviews were like, oh, I was struggling with these manly razors, but luckily Miss Bic came into my life. And I don't remember everything, but it was so freaking funny. Let's see. Oh my God. We've got the internet.
Somebody needs to make a piece with the BarkBox.
There you go.
Just pigs in a blanket.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's pretty good. Miss Bic. Oh wow! Apparently this one has no customer reviews. It was the Miss Bic pens. It was the pens. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, they have women's pens. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have women's pens. They also have women's earplugs, and I'm like, but I don't understand how a foam earplug is different for women. It's the same thing, right?
It's just foam that you
they're
stick in
pink.
your ear. There's no notable difference in size by gender or any of that kind of stuff. It doesn't make any sense.
Everybody knows ear canals are based off of sex and gender,
right.
the color pink.
There's a direct correlation between X and Y chromosomes and ear canal size. My God, what a waste of time.
Okay, yeah. I wish I could give 10 stars. These are my absolute favorite pencils of all time. I'm a nib lover, and meaning I love any kind of writing utensil, and I've used lots of pencils. I love these for several reasons. First, they're very pretty, being pink and black. I even keep my sharpening shavings and use them in my mixed media projects. They're soft. They bend when I'm holding them tightly. I love the way they're graphite lead. I can draw with them, but also use them to just write anything. They also erase easily. The only cons I can think of is no eraser on the pencil, and I use them very quickly. I will buy more. I just ordered 3 packs. Oh my God. Yeah. This is, because you're on here, Elizabeth, we're going to be much more respectful, but this is where David and I usually would go on a tirade about how capitalism is horrible.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, just the whole idea that you're just like, that some idiot out there has to say, you know what we haven't yet done? Let's take innocuous object that costs money, and let's say it's for women, and charge twice as much, for no reason other than that we probably can. I mean, it's just...
I just want to be like a fly on the wall and like super...
Did we lose her?
Yeah, it sounds like we lost her.
Oh.
I want to be these super important meetings.
Well, anyway, let's complain about capitalism then.
I feel as though...
Yeah, fuck capitalism.
She wanted to be a fly on the wall, so let's do it. Yeah, fuck them. Yeah, fuck just the...
Yeah. Well, no, there's another meeting that I really wanted to be on a fly on the wall for, which was when the Met was like, "Hey, let's not do blackface anymore."
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh yes, that would have been perfect. To like sit there
I actually don't know this story. What?
Yeah, so I was thinking it's like almost 2 years ago, they were like, "Oh yeah, let's not do blackface for Othello anymore." I was like, I mean, it's like 2017 now, guys. Like, I don't...
Right.
Oh,
so I have to tell you about
how did
the
that
last
happen?
Day,
we're like, oh,
so at Society for
now
Music Theory,
now
there
is
was
the
a
time.
plenary session
Now's
where
the
there's
time.
a keynote address.
But I guarantee you there was some dude
address,
like in the
we
back of
got
that
was,
meeting that was like,
doing,
but it's tradition,
right? Well, instead of a keynote, we got with 4 people giving papers, and it was basically like, we're finally getting to the point where music theory is caught up with the rest of the world in academia from 40 years ago, which was, hey, everybody, did you know that music theory is white? And you're like, yes. And did you know that that's a problem? Yes. And did you notice also misogynist and that Milton Babbitt was really awful to women? Yes. And to gay people? Uh-huh. And it's like, I was just sitting there going... And it's 2019, and for some reason, this is like news. And I'm just like, it was like, it's a step forward, but it's like, come on. I was just standing there in the back going, well, I'm glad this is finally happening, but it should have happened long before I got here.
It's like, so recently this weekend, there was the slave revolt reenactment. And I was like, hold up. We should have been doing this years ago.
Right.
Like, getting 3,000 plus of your closest black friends and just doing a good old-fashioned slave revolt?
Right.
Like, we should have been doing this before.
Right. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, my dad was like, you cannot participate in the slave revolt Elizabeth, because I have safety concerns.
I love the idea of just like, now, Elizabeth, you can't participate in the slave revolt. Not today.
He was like, really historically, in my experience as a black man in America, when that many black people like assemble together, it just doesn't end well.
Yeah,
it's like,
he's right.
Well, Dad, but it's sponsored by the Met, so I think we might have a chance this time.
Right, exactly. It's like you know when a large institution supports your slave revolt, your fake slave revolt, everything's gonna be just fine.
There's like enough rich white people involved, Daddy, that I think it's gonna be fine.
Right. That's how I felt on the day of the Women's March. On the first one, it's like, oh, nobody's gonna get arrested. It's brought to you by all the white ladies who don't like that Hillary Clinton lost. And it's like, it's worse that Hillary Clinton lost, but there are a lot of problems that would have kept on going if the Democrats had won the election. So,
no.
So there's my political pivot for
happened.
the day.
Yeah.
No, David and I actually made a pact. We weren't going to get too deep into politics just because we like you and didn't want to lose you as a friend. I'm on the outside because everyone's like, oh my gosh, this stuff is going on. I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out if Brexit is happening because I need to know about my UK passport.
Right.
I'm
just exactly.
I just saw a meme where it was like Brexit is like your friend at a party who says they're leaving and then like says goodbye to everybody and then sticks around for the next 3 hours.
Yes, but in the process, drinking all the alcohol and eating all the food.
Right. Oh yeah,
and not like going out to the store to replenish it. Like,
it's not like they're like hanging out and being cool. Like they're being an asshole. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's very as a person who's like technically supposed to have dual citizenship, it's very frustrating because the government workers that I need to like process my applications are like, no, we have to do all this stuff in preparation for Brexit. I'm like, but no, you don't, because it's never happening.
Oh my God.
You're just gonna ask Brussels for another like extension.
Right. Yeah. They'll extend it over and over again. And basically, it'll be like waiting for Brexit as by Samuel Beckett,
Wow. Yeah, I get really, really sick of the term I use is liberal racism or liberal bigotry, where it's people, it's 2019 and some of these conversations are just starting to happen as if they're new pieces of information. And I mean, I'll be totally upfront. Like, I was definitely late on a lot of information just based off of certain social things, like, but like for me, it was the military where I really learned about like what white privilege is and what male privilege is, because it never really sounded like a real thing, because in my area, like I was from a poor white community, and just didn't really realize the differences of certain elements of things, and it's just I can't fucking take it, honestly. And I don't know. I don't want to speak on behalf of you, Elizabeth, but it's something that's one of the most frustrating things.
It's really frustrating for me.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you why it's frustrating. Like the male white privilege thing is frustrating for me, because it's frustrating because like I deal with mansplaining on a regular basis, and it's just like, I'm like, okay, well, these white dudes don't know that I actually know all of these things and more. Mm-hmm. And I'm just sitting here, and at a certain point, it's exhausting, and you don't want to like engage in it. But at the very other side of it is like, most of my romantic things end up being with white men. So it's like, I can't be like, I hate white men, but then also it's like, but I actually do like, I like a nice white man. I really do. It's, I don't know if it's like maybe like reparations. I don't know what that is in my in my DNA that makes that happen. But yeah, so it ends up being like frustrating for me because at one point, part of me wants to scream like, damn you, white men. But then I'm also like, but you're kind of cute. So, hey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. Well,
I mean, those are the systemic problems. I mean, it's just to give an example, like I have a lot of problems with police and the military, but I am actually, because of the military experience, am friends with a lot of cops and a lot of army people. And it's like I still have a gigantic fucking problem with the systemic, authoritarian rule that comes out of these organizations. But it does not mean that there can't be good people or good involvement within the systems. But that being said, the system itself is the problem. And I don't know.
And also, though, I'm also really interested in the system. So, like, there's actually a piece that I've written about like this systemic hierarchy that exists. And so like, I think one of the most frustrating things for me as an African-American female composer, even though I'm not a composer, but like I'm using it for this reason, is that there's always this like women composers, like we must support women composers, but then the photo of the women composers is all white women.
Right.
And so it creates this, like, it just perpetuates this concept of black women being unwomen that has existed since time immemorial.
right. I mean, Sojourner Truth was complaining about this in the 19th century specifically.
Yes.
Ain't I a woman too?
And
right?
it goes into why I like don't have a gendered honorific, because at the core I feel every day like me as a woman is not like I don't have ownership in the title of woman, because everything that's supposed to be woman is taken from me or not afforded to me. And at a certain point you just like, well, cool, I'm not going to associate with that then, because I'm not going to allow myself to fall into the trap of disappointment that might come from not being privy to women things or being treated as a woman. But I think and I wrote an article actually called Ain't I a Woman Too?
Right.
Talking about very much similar
Do you have a link
things.
to that?
Yeah, we can. I'll put up. I remember reading.
It's on New Music USA's New Music Box.
I remember reading it.
But
Great article.
it's quite a problem that we don't address, is that there's such a champion for like women's rights and women composers and women visibility, but then when we look at it, it's actually white women. And that's really unfair to, women of color, not just black, but like other minorities. And I don't know how to change it other than constantly complaining about it for people, so that they see that it's like a thing.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's disheartening for there's so many like young black women who want to be in the industry, who want to compose, and who tell me all the time that they feel like they're not seen because, every optic of everything is a white woman. You think about it, Amazon came out with a series, Modern Love, and Netflix came out with Let It Snow. And in all of these modern love things, there is not one black woman who is a love interest. Not one. They all follow the role of like mother or confidant, helping people figure out their stuff, but they themselves don't get to be a love interest. So then that perpetuates the stereotype that the Hallmark Channel has been
It is
sending
white
for
woman
years,
central.
that
Hallmark
black
Channel.
white women have all the love stories and black women don't have any story. And so, I mean, I would watch that stuff as a child and feel completely disheartened, because if you don't have someone that looks like you, then you feel like that's not a possibility for yourself. And it's an incredible disservice to so many talented women, so many women that have incredible stories behind them.
Right.
And I just wish we could do something about it.
Well, so
that's my soapbox.
Yeah. So let me join you on the soapbox, but offer something. It really behooves is that it's people like Dorian and I who have to stand up and make purposeful choices when selecting people to, like, if we have more power than you do, which I'm not necessarily sure if that's the case at this moment, but in situations where we would have more power, that we purposefully go out of our way to make sure that we're not leaving anybody out, right? So it means that most people are, and that's the problem. But you can say stuff from the sideline, or design your own space where those people aren't ignored. But the real problem has to be the people who are actually running things have to purposefully choose that there are clearly many African American women who want to do this as a composer, or to use the composer example you were using earlier, that it's a purposeful choice to include them. And that's not what's happening, right? Because everyone's trying to make this. It's all about like objectivity. Like, well, the music has to be good or whatever. Like all the reasons people use to not change the methods by which they make selections about who gets to participate. And they're generally just bullshit reasons that keep them, no matter how much they hold on to that idea or believe it, it really just ends up serving the people who are already represented. Anyway.
The thing that I tell people when I'm doing like consultations is that you always should ask the question whenever you're programming, whenever you're creating an opportunity or even presenting something, who is not in the room?
Right.
And why? Because if they make a personal choice to not be in the room, that's one thing. But if you haven't afforded them a way to be in the room at the table to begin with, then that's a problem.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
We agree with you. We have a thing with 10th intervention that's been a difficult way to go around it, because I find one of the grossest ways of handling this very topic is the tokenism approach, where we've filled out grant applications, and I'm not going to use names here just because I don't want to speak on behalf of any of the amazing artists we've worked with, but we have worked with people who are of African American ethnicity or female sex or female gender, and the project has nothing to do with that element, and we still need to get grant money. And it's just like, really, like, oh my god, like, why the fuck would we mention all this identity stuff for an artist that we just want to work with because their art is so amazing? And keep in mind, like we have made a solid effort to try to get out of our own sort of social circles to find art in other places. But then on the other side of it, it's like it really feels like this dirty, gross form of tokenism to always have to go back to these points when at the end of the day, I would rather there just be I would rather it just be commonplace, diverse art with diverse groups of people. And sorry, I just made it a me-centric thing, but it's been one of those things.
No, I mean,
just even in the grant writing. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's difficult as an artist of color, especially when there's like these databases where people are like, oh, well, here's a list of it. And I'm like, but here's the thing. You need to have conversations with those humans. You need to treat them more like than just a data point on a list, because a data point does not represent all of the struggles and ridiculousness that we've had to go through, or I personally have had to go through in this society, in this body. And that's part of anything that I do. And I don't ever want to be chosen just because of the identity that I have. Right. None of us do. We want to be chosen because we're good at what we do, and not, there's times when you go to, like a music festival and you're the only Black person there, and you ask yourself, like, am I here because I'm the diversity hire, or am I here because my application was better than other people's? And it's really demoralizing and frustrating and psychologically challenging in a lot of different ways, because there's never you're never gonna know, because nobody ever says, hey, we picked you because your application was the best of them. Or at least rarely does that happen, that they come up to you and they're like, we picked your application because it was the best.
The other element to this is the amount of times I've seen a mediocre white male or I'll even say white female composer get success just because of the social circles they're in. And I'm going to use you as an example, Elizabeth, just because you literally are a Renaissance artist. Like, you're at the top of your game at like every aspect that you're involved with. And it's like, do you really have to go be in the top 1% of like 7 different skills to be considered? Because that's not the case in other demographics. Which I don't know. I just it's a big fucking problem, and it's really, really annoying and really obnoxious that society has not figured this shit out.
It's really discouraging.
Yes.
Yeah, right. It's really discouraging as well too. Because you're right. I anything that I do, I want to be the top of what I do, and it's so frustrating to me just on a regular basis because of how hard I have to fight for like an opportunity that somebody gets with a phone call from a professor.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so and because I have no institutional attachment, and a lot of the reason I don't have institutional attachment is because I'm very cognizant that I would have gotten put into a box and I wouldn't have been able to do even half of the things that I've been able to do. Right. And so it's an uphill battle because I'm not only fighting like race, gender, but I'm fighting institutional, like the institutional privilege to get even a small nth of what other people get so easily. And some days I'm like, well, that has made me a better artist because I have more, like, I'm stronger, I guess, in some ways. But at the same time, it's like, man, I wish somebody would just make a phone call for me so I could get, like, a nice chamber gig or an orchestral gig. Like, that'd be dope. But, I'm fighting all the way.
Right.
There are two stories that are coming to mind, and I'll make these brief because I just realized we are going over the time we had set.
We literally started this conversation right at about the hour mark.
Right.
And it was too important to stop.
Yeah, well, so the two brief stories, it's about colleagues of ours. All three of us know these people. If you're familiar with the story, then you know who it is. But again, I don't want to speak on behalf of these people, so I'm going to talk generally. But there was a friend of ours, African-American man. I believe he's from an upper middle class family, and he got commissioned to write a piece about the school to prison pipeline. And it was just like, what the fuck? Like, I'm paraphrasing because he's actually much more elegant spoken than I am. But it was a lot of like, just like, I don't know anything about the school to prison pipeline. Like, I don't know anybody who's gone to prison. Did you ask me to write this piece because of my skin color? So that's one. And the answer was yes. The ensemble didn't actually say this, but the answer was yes. And then the second story was another mutual friend of all of ours, actually another African American man, he was at some talk, I think for the League of American Orchestras, something like that. And the discussion, the talking point, I think you know the story. The talking point was, is it better for quality concerts or diverse programming? Implying that a diverse program would affect the quality of the concert, which is possibly the grossest thing I've heard in a long time. I mean, grossest thing is...
I'm not going to say names.
Yep.
But unfortunately, when you are the only black person in a sea of just white people surmising what they think about black people and their relationship to classical music, which obviously any discussion like that is going to go wrong.
Right.
I have woke Tourette's. It's a thing where people say horribly wrong things, and then I just find myself eloquently debunking that theory, and it's passed out of my mouth without me realizing it.
Wow.
But I was up in Canada, and at an unfortunate diversity panel, this person on the panel said, well, we may never know why black people don't like classical music. And I was like, actually, it's a socioeconomic problem caused by systemic racism. And everyone was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Exactly,
and then I had to explain. See, woke Tourette's is a problem. It just came out of my mouth, and I was like, dang it, now I have to explain to all these people because they have no clue.
Yeah.
Everyone should read White Fragility because it's...
I've been meaning to do that for a while.
If you ever start a band and you need a keyboard player, hire me and call it Woke Tourette's. I'll play the shit out of that.
I don't know. I thought White Fragility was a good name for a band.
Yeah. It's a great book that everyone should read.
Yeah.
I love that book.
I'm
very
literally
necessary.
writing it down.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes.
And it's written by a white woman for white people, which is the greatest thing. I'm like, it's not even us black folk trying to tell you what's wrong.
Right.
It's your own people trying to be like, hey, this is the problem.
Right.
But woke Tourette's. The other one that would be a great I said I'm like the woke Mary Poppins of experimental music.
A spoonful of wokeness, motherfucker.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
just
funny.
flying off with an umbrella, hey, systemic
so funny.
Racism is a thing. Just off in the chimney, the chimneys are going, and I'm just flying off.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
Oh
my goodness.
Well, so we this is our very first interview. So thank you, Elizabeth. You were basically just a lot of it has been David and I just kind of thinking about who would be a good person, and we've been developing our flow with this show because it's really a brand new show. We're not even really promoting these until we have a couple out. But you were just an obvious choice for somebody that we wanted to talk to because I don't want to speak for David, but I have massive amounts of respect for you and a massive amount of respect for your work, and just I think you represent just some really really important things in the American culture and even the international global culture that just needs to be addressed. Aside from all of that, your music is incredible, and I love the work you're doing. And we
go
would
buy
like
Quadrivium, everybody.
Yeah. So we would like to continue this someday. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but you're always welcome back here, and I think we should maybe schedule something. Because we're still developing our flow too. It took us an hour to get to the actual substance of the conversation. It's a growing process. We want this to be very natural, and you just were the obvious first guest, just because of all of your work, and I'm in awe. Just even knowing you, let alone being friends with you. I don't know. Yeah, David, did you have any thoughts?
What I was going to say is that the performance I've seen of yours is easily one of the ones that I remember. I go to concerts like 3 a week or more as a music critic, and you're playing at the Resound Festival is one that I remember, which is that most concerts are forgettable after a few weeks, and the way that you dancing around with the ladder and having the sound be controlled by your movements. It's just like I've literally never seen anything like that before or heard anything like that. I don't. There's another statement that's supposed to come after this one, and it's not coming to my brain. So we'll call it this way. I liked it. That's great. So it was obvious for us that we're just like, we should talk to you because we both like what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And Elizabeth, did you want to kind of say anything just before we close off of here?
I mean, I should have talked about object studies because that's the next set of works that are going to be shown. And it would have been so great to talk to you guys about object theory.
Okay.
But
we can make that the next one then, if you like.
Yeah, I'm down.
But yeah, so right now that I have some pieces that are based on object theory.
Cool.
And surface studies, which are based on taking the three-dimensional object, representing it in two-dimensional space, and then having a performer interpret that two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional object in undefined dimensions of sound. That's what I'm doing now.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
So you'll have to
Normal
you'll have to
Elizabeth
elaborate
just
on that
picking
again at some point.
Yeah, picking the easiest topic to just dive right into. Where can people find you online and find your work?
ElizabethABaker.com.
Okay. Yeah, and that's
the easiest way.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Elizabeth also is a good social media poster. I appreciate many of your posts, the funny ones and the serious ones. And keep in mind, audience, we are posting these weeks after we record because David and I still don't know what the hell we're doing, but we're figuring it out a little bit at a time. But anyways, thank you, Elizabeth, so much for coming on. This is Trysteropod. My name is Dorian Wallace, and this is my colleague and friend, composer, performer, David Colma. Thank you all. Have a good one. Peace.
Bye-bye.
We cannot disconnect. Even if we wanted to make a clean break from the technological being global. The days of brash, acoustic huff and puff dial-up have given way to the silent web crawler. What is done in silence rarely comes to light. We cannot disconnect. Even if we wanted to make a clean break from the technological being global. We cannot disconnect. The days of brash, acoustic even if we wanted to make a clean break given way to the silent web crawler. The technological being global. The days of brash, acoustic huff and puff dial-up have given way to the silent web crawler. What is done in silence rarely comes to light. IP address 173.168.136.230. IP address 173.168.1 0. https://www.google.com/maps/place/st. Plus Petersburg, comma, plus FL slash at 27.7792052 colon dash 82.8177611 comma 11Z slash data equals exclamation point 3M1 exclamation point 4B1 exclamation point 4M5 exclamation point 3M4 exclamation point 82.82.4D-2.8.2.6.2.6.7.3.4.5 home 11:05 p.m. User 10.07.1075374 reviewed 11:04 p.m. User 10.107.53.74 reviewed 11:04 p.m. User 101753 11:04 p.m. User 10.107.53.74 updated her status 10:24 p.m. User 10.07.53.74 reacted to user 2607:F8 reacted to user 2607:.